Let's take her live and have a pre-stream and bitch about Windows.
Sounds good to me.
No, nothing better than whining and complaining about Microsoft Windows. I mean, they're everybody's favorite punching bag now.
I was just gonna say it is something we can all relate to, and it's something that we can really all connect over.
But you know what's funny?
Come together.
You know what's funny? I listen to a fair number of different podcasters or YouTubers or whatever you want to call them, and every one of them has been bitching about this lately. Where they don't change their sound settings whatsoever, but they go to play, all of a sudden all their sounds it's even choosing the wrong device, and they go, what the hell?
Yeah, everyone is complaining about this now. I mean, for a while there, it was only people who were regularly doing shows and like had some good equipment, but now everybody is complaining.
Seems like Microsoft's like, you know what? We don't think anybody understands their sound at all. We're just going to fix it for them.
Yeah.
We'll fix it. You know what? They've got these devices in here that don't actually work. Let's turn them on and make them work.
I had an interesting experience last week.
What's that?
I was listening to music. I have an Amazon music thing up, and all of a sudden, the music stopped playing. And I went in, and for some reason, it wasn't going through the regular speakers. And it took me a while to figure it out. But somehow, for some reason, the computer had switched all the sound to something else. And I had to switch it back to the actual speaker system. And there was no updates. There was nothing. It just randomly switched.
Yeah. No.
That was so weird.
Yeah, welcome to the world of the AI, you know? We got the AI.
And really irritating when you're like, and you got the good tunes going, and then all of a sudden, bam, your music's gone.
Yep, and I'm now on another government list, so it's all good.
Okay, we're aiming for 100 here, so you're almost there.
100 government lists? Oh, I think I'm most of them now. I did have a nice, interesting thought about it. You know, if the grid goes down, then you vanish into the ether because they don't have paper backups of all this shit anymore.
Oh my God, I hadn't even thought about that.
It's like the thought suddenly occurred to me. It's like, you know, it makes no difference anymore if I'm honest, because once the network goes completely kapooey, or the we get a massive EMP in the world, you know, all of a sudden, poof, all the digital technology's gone, so they have no records of who you are anymore.
No, man, they don't even do birth certificates in paper anymore. Like, all that information is all digital.
Yeah, it's all digitized. Yeah, it's all digital now. So it's like, all right, well, just another list. I had to register my business, and so I had to actually put an app on my phone so I could log into their website. It's like really quite irritating how they do it now.
Really odd one that a lot of companies have started doing. In order to get into like the dashboard, you have to log in through your phone now, which is, I kind of get it for security's sake, but at the same time, it is really frustrating.
It's the worst security possible. It's just another way to track you, because everyone carries these little mobile tracking devices around with them. I'm starting to think mine was tracking me massively for a week, because all of a sudden my battery problem has stopped on my phone.
Or, you know, that could also just be the fact that you're giving it the proper kind of love.
No,
you know, plugging it in regularly, letting it charge.
No, I'm not doing it any better than I was. It's no better, but the battery is now lasting longer, whereas it was like dying in 4 hours. It's like, what the hell? And I charge it fully up and it die. Now, suddenly, I guess it started yesterday. All of a sudden, it's holding its charge again. It's like, okay.
Maybe it likes the heat. We're experiencing some pretty good heat since yesterday.
Yeah, it's oh, I think my thermometer got hit by the sun. I looked out earlier, it was 32, and now it says 42, and I don't believe it's 42. I believe my meter's probably in the sun now.
No, it says our thermometer here says it's 34 degrees outside, which that doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, that one there is accurate because it's actually in a semi-shaded place. It gets no direct sunlight.
Yeah, 34 degrees. Holy cow. And what I find really interesting is yesterday we made it up to 35.
Yeah.
And no heat warning, nothing through the weather forecast. But today I've had like 3 heat warnings. And it's like it's the same temperature as yesterday.
Oh yeah, well, you gotta panic gotta panic people. But hey, it's all good, you know.
No, you know what I think? I think that whoever was in charge of sending out the things just kind of fell asleep at the job and forgot to set the AI on it.
Oh, that could be it too. Yeah, that's a 93-degree day. That's what I thought. It's like 90 degrees. It's like, yeah.
93? Oh, you're talking Fahrenheit.
Yeah, well, for those out there that don't understand, it's like I understand Celsius to a certain extent up until it gets around the 30, and then I forget how hot that actually is, because I grew up with Fahrenheit, and
I grew up with Celsius, so it makes more sense to me in Celsius.
Yes, it makes sense to you in Celsius. It makes sense to me in both, because I had to live in both those worlds. So it's really kind of, a little irritating. But, 34 is 93 degrees for our American visitors who show up here. Because you got to remember the Americans, which, they one of the last 2 countries in the world to convert to the metric system. No, I don't blame them sometimes. Sometimes the metric system is just a pain in the neck. Other times it's really great. The biggest problem we have is, of course, we live on the metric system here in Canada, but yet when you go buy produce and produce or other things, they sell it to you by the kilo, but they weigh it out and price it by the pound.
Yep.
It's like, okay, I understand the reason why, because it seems like it's cheaper when it's priced by the pound. Like if, for example, selling my tomatoes at the market, last couple of weeks, if I had to price them by the kilo, they'd be paying $8 a kilo. Yeah, $8.50 a kilo, I suppose.
Okay.
But when I price it by the pound, it's only it's actually $4.50 a pound. $4.50 a pound. So, but it sounds much better when it's priced by when it's sold by the pound versus sold by the kilo.
Yeah, it really does.
That's why it's still done that way.
Okay, well that makes sense, but still, for those of us who are not overly great at mathematics, it kind of sucks.
Yeah, it's confusing. It's confusing when you look at the price. It's price per kilo, and then it's sold per pound.
Yeah.
Which you got to remember what a kilo is. It's 2.2 pounds. So that's where the math comes in. Problem.
Yeah, like I said, those of us who are not overly great at math, it's not nice.
Yeah, it's no fun whatsoever. All right, well, we actually had a bit of a pre-show for those of you out there, and I think it's time to kick up some music, and let's head into the first show in weeks.
These are the days of thunder. We're gonna make time stand still. A quarter after midnight, and I'm watching the wall. Sometimes I feel so uptight, I just can't sleep at all. Every day doing the same old thing, we're losing time. The weekend comes, we gotta have some fun and rewind. These are the days of thunder. We're gonna make time stand still. We gotta feel the hunger, hanging over the edge just to taste the thrill. I feel the rope tightening, choking off our air. We need to grab some lightning. Friday's almost here. Caught in a web, we need to cut this thread we're hanging by. Where is it said you have to be half dead to survive? These are the days of thunder. We're gonna make time stand still. We gotta feel the hunger, hanging over the edge just to taste the thrill. These are the days of thunder. We're gonna make time stand still. We gotta feel the hunger, hanging over the edge just to taste the thrill. These are the days of thunder. We're gonna make time stand still. We gotta feel the hunger, hanging over the edge just to taste the thrill. These are the days of thunder.
Alrighty then. Shall we get started?
Absolutely.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is time for WordPress Plugins A to Z, not Z.
It's episode 607, and we have plugins for redirecting, hiding the notices, and WordPress news, all coming up on WordPress Plugins from A to Z. WordPress. It's the most popular content management and website solution on the internet. And with over 80,000 plugins to choose from, how do you separate the junk from the gems? Join us for a weekly, unrehearsed conversation about the latest and greatest in WordPress plugins. This is WordPress Plugins from A to Z. Well, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you happen to be hiding out there on the globe today. Hopefully you're hiding and ducking from this wickedly hot sun we've got, which, well, it's not all that bad. It's kind of like a good day in Southern California about 30 years ago. And, you know what? I just went off on a tangent and a half and didn't even bother introducing myself, did I?
No, you didn't.
It seems I've not been doing this long enough. Well, welcome to the show. I'm John Overall. With me is the ever lovely
Amber Overall.
And it is the usual show today, and because I have gone down there, well, I should just...
Thank you for sharing, John. Now get down from that soapbox.
Yeah, today is definitely a day where you should get that hook to pull you off the stage.
Yeah, I was well on my way to a tangent, not even knowing where I was going. I forgot what I was doing.
Welcome to episode 607. It's called Balance Has Been Restored to the WordPress Plugins. We've got a couple great in-depth plugins to cover for you, some recent news in both the WordPress world and the tech world in general, and some awesome WordPress tips. We were gone for a bit longer than originally planned, but we're back now, and exceedingly talkative, as you can tell.
Just a little bit, here and there.
Yeah, happy belated BC Day to everyone who's in the province. We are in for another heat wave this week, at least here where we are. And like you were mentioning before, it's pretty hot up there. We're already sitting at 34 degrees where I am. So if you are having to be outside, make sure you have water. Try to find shade if you can, and make sure you have that salt in your diet too, so you can actually retain the water. Some reminders before we start show day. What was that?
I said very important. And for our Americans, that's 98 degrees.
Yeah. So some reminders before we start the show today. Remember that the show starts at 12:30 p.m. Pacific time, with the pre-stream starting around 12:15 p.m. Pacific time. Pre-stream is where we twiddle the dials and knobs and really just warm up our voices. Sometimes we tell some entertaining stories. Sometimes we're a little boring. Depends on whether or not we're awake yet, really. Our show notes for each episode can be found at wpplugins.a2z.com. The newest show notes will be up within 24 hours and on our front page, as you can see right there. And it has been nicely revamped. We made it live right before I left for my initial 2 weeks. So if you haven't seen it yet, go check it out. It's actually, I'm quite proud of it. I think it looks really cool. And don't forget that this is a value for value show and that you are a big part of its creation. You are our producers. We need you to help us produce. So get on out there, hit some like button, share an episode or two, and let people know that you helped to produce the longest running WordPress Plugins podcast. That's it for reminders. Don't forget to stick around till the end of the show also for some possibly life-altering advice. And if you have any questions, send them in to me and we'll get your question at the end there. Our artist today is Greg's graphic. It's an older picture because we have not been getting any newer art. But I really like the picture today. I always think of these stacks of stones. I swear they're glued, but then I've poked them before and they're never glued.
No, they fall right over.
They do.
Yeah, but they're like that because somebody managed to achieve balance.
Yep. It's always so impressive. I'm very careful not to poke them anymore because I felt really bad when I was younger and poked them.
Yeah. I've seen some impressive stacks. I've seen some upwards of 5 feet tall.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, it's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
I have actually seen glued ones, and those ones you can tell are glued because they're like at all the wrong angles and sideways, and those ones aren't nearly as impressive.
No, these are quite impressive. I like this piece of art. So thanks, Greg. If you're still out there listening to us, we still appreciate your artwork. If you ever decide to do artwork again, please send it our way.
And if anyone out there is listening and is feeling at all inspired, you can send in your artwork to us at wppluginsa.com/artwork. You can also check out the Art Vault yourself there too. Maybe get some ideas, you know. Feed the idea machine in your head.
Absolutely.
On to the news.
Yeah, off we go.
Please, can everybody be quiet? Please be quiet. Shut up! And now the news with Amber.
So the first thing we have here is the WordPress vulnerability report for July 27th, 2023. We have a long list of plugins that have been patched, so make sure to go and check this out. You will find the links in our show notes. It's always going to be the first link under the news this week. So go check out the plugins that have been patched. When I was checking this morning, there was an additional notice added about Patch Stack listing multiple high severity vulnerabilities in the Ninja Forms plugins. So it is recommended that you update to version 3.6.26 as soon as possible. There is a large amount of unpatched plugins that are here as well, so you'll want to check those out. The ones that I most easily recognize are WPS Limit Login, Social Share Icons and Social Share Buttons, Google Maps Shortcode, WP Quick Post Duplicator, and WP Logger. There are a total of 66 this week, so be sure you go through your client sites and your sites and check the list. And
there's a lot of really popular plugins in the list this week.
Yeah.
A lot of real popular plugins I recognize.
Yeah.
So
and
time to get your updates done, folks.
We also have a list of 54 WordPress themes that have issues.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things going on right now. I did write down all of the WordPress themes in here. So if you want to go to our show notes, you can look through the list, see if you're using any of those themes. But you can also just go check out the link. There's a lot of the WordPress themes. Do be aware, okay?
Yeah. Or you can just, skip using a theme.
Yeah.
Drop to the something simple and then build from there. More of what we're doing these days.
Yep.
Wish I'd figured it out way sooner.
Well, next up we have WordPress 6.3 Lionel. This is named after Lionel Hampton, the celebrated American jazz artist. 6.3 has been released, but my own recommendation is that you do not update immediately. Let others update and report the issues. Save yourself the hassle. If you wait for a bit, the kinks will mostly be gone and you'll be able to update without too much worry. There seems...
Keep going.
There seems to be a lot put into this particular update. Loads of things that you can now do in the site editor. Better creation and syncing capabilities. And officially the command palette. This appears to be the name that everyone agreed on. If anybody who listens to our show regularly remembers, we had a large discussion about what they were naming it and everything. They decided on the command palette.
Mm-hmm.
I think they should have stuck with center console.
Yes.
I think that would have been better, but...
Yeah, well, logic. Logic is... What is this thing keep doing this to me?
So there is more in this particular update. If you want to learn more about what's inside of it, you can go and check out the link in our show notes.
Cool.
Next up, we have WordPress kicks off admin design overhaul with discussion on initial mockups. So Gutenberg's Phase 3 is focused on collaboration on the admin revamp as part of the roadmap. So what they're looking to do is they're looking to change the administrator dashboard area. They want to change it up. They want to make it more modern. This has been talked about a few times. It has been mentioned that WordPress's admin design is aging, and there have been some initial mockups that you can find if you follow this link. These are broad stroke mockups, not really any great detail. It's just stuff that's been sent in, ideas. If you're interested, you can go check those out. It seems like a lot of people are speaking up in the comments section though, they're saying like, I'm not so sure how I feel about this. I'm having enough trouble with the constant changes in Gutenberg, and now you want to change my admin dashboard. I'm not so sure I like this.
Yeah, well, it's going to be very entertaining, and no matter what we care about, or the vast majority care about, the minority that decides on it's going to cram it down our throats.
Yeah,
It's going to
and
be
eventually we all have to update.
Yeah, and eventually you have to suck it up and deal with it. And whining and complaining didn't do me any good last time or the time before, so I don't think I'll whine and complain next time. I'll just bitch, moan, and slog through it.
Yeah,
So,
just join the masses and whine.
yeah, I'll just join them, and because the minorities who's in charge of the code is going to do it whether we want it or not.
Yep.
And,
Well, reading through this article gives you an idea on which direction we're likely to head for the revamp.
Yeah.
So it is something to keep an eye on.
Yeah, well,
because at least you'll have a bit of a heads up.
yeah, the only hope is that it'll take them 2 or 3 years with the infighting that usually results from it. So
We can hope, but I
Yeah.
don't know. They've been moving pretty fast through this roadmap that they
Mm.
talked about a couple years ago.
some of it, but they've stalled at other places. So we'll see.
That's true.
We'll see what happens. Hopefully they don't make too big a mess of it. That would be the really irritating part, is they make a big mess of it.
Yeah. I'll cross my fingers and toes.
I mean, the last time they revamped the admin, they did a fantastic job with it, because it was a mess originally, and then it was revamped and it became so much easier to use. So let's hope that
Right.
they keep it in line with the first time.
That would be really cool.
Mhm.
So maybe we'll head in that direction.
Maybe. We can only hope.
Crossing your fingers and toes. Next up, we have Gutenberg 16.4 introduces experimental auto-inserting blocks. So auto-inserting blocks experimental feature allows developers to specify a location in which the block will be auto-inserted, such as before or after a template. The block can then be repositioned after insertion using the editor tools. I can see how this would be useful, and this will apply to both the front end and the site editor via the REST API.
Cool.
The hope is that this improves the extensibility of block themes through plugins. Hopefully it works the way they are hoping. Right now it's still in the experimental phase. And then we have the first Learn WordPress course cohort will teach participants how to develop blocks. So this could actually be a very useful thing, because there are a lot of people who are still having problems with really wrapping their minds around Gutenberg. I am one of them. I don't work well with it. Like, I figured out the basics, but it doesn't come easily to me. It's not as intuitive for me. I find Elementor a lot more intuitive for my brain.
Yeah, that's why I'm sticking with Elementor.
Yeah, so this course deadline to apply is August 20th, 2023, and the course will run from September 4th until October 9th. What you will get in the course is Week 1, Introduction, preparing your environment for block development. Week 2, using Create Block to scaffold your first block, Internationalism. I'm sure they will explain what scaffolding your block means. Week 3, Block Styling, Block Supports, and Block Controls. Week 4, Block Attributes, Block Components. Week 5, Interacting with WordPress data. And Week 6, Dynamic Blocks. So it may actually be worth checking out if you're still having troubles wrapping your mind around Gutenberg. I don't know if it's going to fill up fast or slow. If you are interested, the best idea is to just go and apply. Your deadline is August 20th, so good luck if you are interested.
Yep.
And we have WordPress Plugin Review Team addresses backlog of 900 plus plugins, implement strategies to improve approval process. Wow, that's more of a tongue twister than I thought. So WordPress's plugin review team has been wading through a backlog of over 900 plugins, awaiting approval just this last week. Current count is about 870 in the review queue. Average wait time is about 61 days before initial review. So the way they're dealing with this is they've opened more applications for team members, selected new team representatives, and have more than 20 applicants who have expressed interest in volunteering.
Yep.
Hopefully this helps out.
Hopefully. Hopefully it helps out. Yeah, they've fallen behind, but there's a lot of plugins being created again. Must be a lot of bored developers.
Or they come across problems that there's no answer to right now.
And they're creating the answers, and they decide to share it with the world.
Yeah, well, it is something to be aware of if you have a plugin in the queue yourself. Just be aware that it may take a bit longer than expected to get your plugin through the process.
Yeah.
And the last thing I have for today is, should you keep or delete old content in WordPress? And this is an expert opinion, the article writer themselves. Reading through this, I actually found it a really useful article. It goes over the issues one comes across with older content in WordPress, offering various scenarios on what happens when you go ahead and delete your old content, how scheduling regular content updates can be helpful, how promoting your old evergreen post and what an evergreen post is can be helpful as well. There are quite a few things throughout this article, and a lot of what this article covers isn't just WordPress specific. A lot of the information you can apply to anywhere. I remember learning a bunch of this when I tried to get a newspaper up and going when I was in high school. You can take this information, you can apply it to just about anything that has content in your life. It's very good knowledge to have and worth going and looking at.
Yeah. Well, it happens, but what's interesting to me is even old content can still provide answers for what you're doing. You just got to be able to interpret the changes and stuff.
And that's actually something that this article talks about, why you probably shouldn't delete it. You should just rewrite it.
Yeah,
Rewrite it, update it, add updates.
Add updates to it. Don't rewrite it.
Yeah.
Add updates to it, or make notes of the changes and whatever you've written before. It's like I imagine a fair amounts of the content I wrote for johnoverall.com back in the early years of WordPress is relatively out of date, but a lot of the answers are still valid. It's like even when I have to hunt for an answer to a problem I'm having, I'll find stuff from 2002 on the internet, and it won't be the exact phrasing of what I'm looking for, but it'll have an answer that I can use, or it might even point me in the right direction for something that hasn't been thought of in a while.
But that's like this industry specific. If you're thinking about other industries where there's writing and say they take this article and they take this information and apply it to newspaper, you may not want to rewrite it, but you may have to. Like it's a really good, very dynamic, informational article. I really like it, and it was sent in to us by a listener. So
okay,
wanted to bring this forward.
Well, thanks for the listener.
We do have a lot of extras, and pretty much all of them have to do with WordPress because, well, we were gone for a bit. So I wanted to make sure we got all of the important WordPress information up so you can find a lot more WordPress news under our extras this week.
Excellent. Lots of great stuff for folks. All right, off we go. Alrighty, it's plugin time. And the one I've got for you this week is an oldie but a goodie, and one that I completely forgot about. This plugin here is Redirection by John Goodley, and this is a plugin I used years ago when I was big into SEO and helping stuff. And of course, I hadn't been into it for a little while, and lately, due to circumstances and clients and needs and the facts that it's changed a lot, I've had to get back into it. And we're trying to clean up a client site that had some issues, whereas for some reason, there's these links in Google that were saying, you got a 404 page. When we searched, no, the page exists. The problem is somewhere along the line, somebody changed the title and the slug from what Google had. I don't know, they left the title the same and changed the slug. Is what happened. And we needed to redirect them. And there's lots of ways to do the redirections. You can, if you're manually inclined, you can get in and go create your htaccess files or whatever you want. There's dozens of redirection plugins out there. Some are good, some suck wind. I've used a little of both over the years, and I forgot about this one. This one here is fantastic. It's a free one, which is the best part. It gives you everything you need. I looked at a couple others to see before I remembered this one, and they only give you so much ability to do your 301 redirects or monitor 404s before they start charging you for all the extra parts, which, you know, I understand. They got to make money. But redirection, this plugin has been around for over 10 years. And it's got over 2 million active users on it right now. Fantastic.
That's a lot.
Yeah, and it's good. And they keep it up to date. They updated it recently, 4 months ago, which means it's compatible. Chances are it's compatible with PHP 8, which it is because I tested it. But the big thing is it's easy to deal with. And it's also got some auto functions in it didn't have before, such as it looks through, like WordPress keeps track in the database when you make a change to your slug, and it's supposed to automatically create a redirection for the search engines or other people that might have hit that old slug and redirect them. Well, sometimes that doesn't work. But what this plugin does is it looks for that information in the database and it automatically creates all those 301 redirects. So basically what it did was it saved me about an hour's worth of time on this client site by, once I turned it on, said, yeah, go ahead and create the autos. It created automatically all the 301 redirects I was going to have to do manually, which was just a saving piece. It was just brilliant. The other thing it does for you is it has a monitor. It keeps a log of all 404 errors that hit on the site. And what you can do
That is so useful.
and the brilliant thing with is once you get this log, you can go through the log. If you see it's a 404 error that it needs to be redirecting somewhere, you can just a few clicks and you can have a 301 redirect already set up with no problem.
Nice.
So lots of great useful tools in this. And it can be used, the plugin can be used if you only need a few 301 redirects, or maybe you're revamping an entire site and you're going to have hundreds or thousands of redirects. It'll allow you to import a 301 redirect via a CSV file. You can go create yourself an Excel spreadsheet of all these redirects, and you can just import it directly in. You don't have to manually retype it up. So there's a lot of really great tools here. And I'm pretty sure if you dig back in the archives of WP plugins, I probably reviewed this plugin way back in the Ether years.
Probably.
Well, a lot of these plugins I've been bringing back lately are ones that I reviewed years ago. And these are, of course, these ones that have managed to hang on through the 14, actually, I've been doing this for 15 years with just solely WordPress. To hang on for the 15 years are the really good, solid developers, the one that are making a living doing what they're doing. So good for them. Good for that. Redirection, fantastic plugin. Go check it out. I give it a 5 dragon rating. And it's Redirection from John Goodley.
All right. We have a sound for WordPress tips, yeah?
There it is. But you can't hear.
All right, the sound that I can't hear. All right. So, WordPress tips. We would love to hear some tidbit tips from some of our producers out there. What have you figured out by breaking stuff? What have you figured out that somebody else broke and you found an answer for? Send that information in to us. Or if you just have some good advice that you want to give to someone who is very much so greener than you, give them some advice to help them get through the tougher parts, send it in. We'll get it in here. In the meantime, we'll make do with the stuff I come up with. First, we have making sites. So sometimes you will have to remake a site that you made at the very start of your career. First thing to keep in mind is don't despair. The site was absolutely amazing when you first made it, but now looking at it, you can't help but see all the different things you could have done so much better. Don't get hung up on the small details, and don't allow yourself to get too far into the remaking of the little details of this site to your own standards. One of the things you need to remember is that when you made this, your client saw it, they loved it. So if they're wanting you to remake it to bring it more up to date, but they want you to keep the look and feel, don't go crazy redoing things to make it look more modern and sleek. You got to actually stick to keeping it look very similar to how you had it. Otherwise, you're going to upset your client. You're going to lose that job. Yep. Another thing to remember is you aren't going to be able to reproduce it perfectly. So even though you can't get too stuck or bogged down to details, you also need to remember that you will have to change things because you're not going to be able to bring that site up to date and keep everything identical either. You got to find kind of a middle ground, and you can't get hung up on this either. It's really quite tricky when you're doing this for the first few times. You gotta kind of find that middle ground and accept that you may or may not be able to do the exact same thing all over again. Also that you can't totally change it. A little frustrating, but you'll get there. And it may not seem like a very helpful thing to hear this until you're doing the job and you find yourself telling yourself all these things while you're working. The goal is to not beat yourself up and not drive yourself into a complete baldness of stress. So find that middle ground and don't beat yourself up.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And you will, if you've got a good quality client, sooner or later you're going to have to redo it, which is happening right now with the massive changeover from PHP 7 to PHP 8.
Mm-hmm.
Where you have to throw out that theme you used last time because, well, it's no longer compatible. It's no longer the developers, while the theme exists, still can't seem to get it right. So you just want to throw that theme out and start with another theme. And that's where your problem lies, because you did something with one theme and now you got to do something similar with another theme, or just starting from basics from like a Elementor basic theme.
Yeah, it can be really frustrating, but got to keep in mind, don't beat yourself up and don't get bogged down and don't lose yourself in the tiny details. You got to finish the broad strokes before you can get to the tiny details.
Yep.
I've got a few beginner's tips here as well. This is about doing research. When you're doing research, don't just look for the bit of information and the how-tos you come across that you feel is the most important at the time. Slow yourself down and read the whole thing. Why? Because later on, you'll find that you actually need to go back to that same article again and read all the stuff you skipped last time in your rush to get to the info you need at the time. So really, what's happening is you're wasting your time now, because if you had just slowed down enough to read the whole damn thing in the first place, you wouldn't have to now be going back and reading it all over again. So one of the things that a lot of people do when they first start is they're always in a rush. They're trying to hurry up and catch up to everyone else. Well, the trick here is to slow down when you're first learning and make yourself read it all the first time. Learn as much as you can right in the beginning so that you don't have to take a step back and have to relearn a whole bunch of things in order to keep up with where you are now. That's a mistake that I actually made when I first started. I was in such a rush to learn so much stuff, I started skipping things in order to get things done faster. And I find now that I've had to go back and I've had to reread all the things I skipped before. It's really just a waste of time. So if you can, slow yourself down when you first start doing the research. Make yourself read it all. Take your time, actually learn it, and then you won't have to go back and you won't have to relearn it all. A great example would also when you're working with a new to you program, like a great example of that is Screaming Frog. That's a program that I've been working on learning for a bit now. When I first started learning it, I just kind of learned the absolute basics. Absolute. I didn't really read too much into the tool right away. That was a mistake because I found that in order to understand really what this tool was doing, I again had to go back and really learn more about the tool and learn about all the basic tools, which I swear the main set of tools in this one program is like 45 tools. I was able to save myself time by actually paying attention and reading more on this in the first place than having to go back and back and back to learn each tool individually as I need. So slowing down when you're first there is kind of hard to do because we want to know everything all at once and we want to get through things faster so we can get more things done. But if you can do it, slow yourself down, learn slower, you'll learn better, and then you'll have that information. You won't have to go back and do it all over again.
All right. You ready?
I think the sound happened.
It just did.
Okay,
You don't
sound
hear
happened.
you don't hear the plugin bumper?
Sometimes I hear it. Today I kind of hear almost like a tickle in my ear, and that's about it.
Oh, okay.
So my plugin for today is Hide WP Admin Notifications. This is a fresh out-of-the-box plugin that is completely free to use. Very simple, which is just fantastic when working with sites. All it is meant to do is hide those notifications. But this plugin does not just hide the notifications. It also gives you the option to show these notifications in the settings. You will find the settings for this in the left-hand menu under Settings, then Hide WP Admin Notifications. I like the fact that they don't actually change a name. Some plugins, what they'll do is they'll have their normal name, like Hide WP Admin Notifications, but then when they put it into that side menu, it's just hide notification or like Hide WP. They don't put their full name, but when they put their full name, it makes it a lot easier to scan and find them. So once you're there, you'll land on a very simple dashboard with a single checkbox. You mark the checkbox, click Save Changes, and your notices will temporarily show that. Your notices will temporarily show so that you can go through them and see what's been building up over the last little while. And then after a little while, the notices will automatically vanish again. It's a really great, straightforward tool for developers working on client sites is how I see this as most useful. You will be able to hide the notifications so clients don't worry, but you'll be able to check the notices whenever you are in their site. This way, you can work through the things as you have time and need, rather than having some clients are a little jumpy. They see a notice, they contact you immediately, want dealt with. Well, you won't have to worry about that with this. They won't see it. Only you will see it when you get in there and you actually go to check them. And I really love how very simple and straightforward this plugin is. A lot of simple plugins seem to try to make things more pretty or somewhat fancy in an attempt to make it more interesting. But really, all you need is simple, straightforward. That's all you really need for a simple plugin. Very useful, great plugin, and bonus, it seems to play well with others and is kept pretty up to date. I rate this at 5 dragons.
So what you're telling me is this is a hide admin notification plugin that actually works.
Yes.
I've tried maybe a dozen of these things, and initially it sort of works, and then all of a sudden it's creating grief for you. And I had to turn it off.
I think the reason it works so well is because they made it simple.
Could very well
You
be.
can't get more simple than this. It's really great.
Excellent. Well, good to hear that it's a high WordPress admin notification that actually works. We need more plugins like that.
We really do.
All right, then. I guess it's time for...
It's time to donate to WP Plugins A-Z.
So, first we want to talk about earning yourself a producership credit. We have 3 levels of producers that help keep the show's larder stocked to bursting. We have our freelance producers, backroom producers, and warroom producers. There are special perks for backroom and warroom producers that you can learn about on our site, WPPluginsA-Z.com. Click on Time, Treasure, or Talent Donations in our main menu, which is on the left-hand side, and you will learn all the nitty-gritty details and how you can add your 2 cents. So, if you want to know more information on how to become a freelance backroom or warroom producer, go and check out our show notes. And join in and be part of your own production and support the show at the same time. Now, this is where you really get to produce. You can send things into us. You can use us as our tool to get yourself out there. You can you can send in plugin reviews or suggestions for plugin reviews. Send in your own plugin license and add it to the contest, which we aren't running any contests right now, but they will come back. They're kind of like the cat. They always come back. Send in questions or comments. And support the show by subscribing or donating. All kinds of stuff you can do. But if anyone out there is interested in getting a hold of me, you can reach me at amber@wppro.ca. You can send in questions, send in messages, all kinds of stuff. Feel free to send in anything, really.
Pretty much.
Yeah. And we do have a couple of announcements. If any of our listeners out there want to announce something like that there is a meetup happening or that they're going to be on stage at WordCamp, you can send it in to us, let us know, and we'll get it here under announcements from us and producers. Right now, the information we have is there doesn't seem to be a Victoria meetup scheduled at this time. They do try to keep the meetups happening regularly, though, so you can keep checking back about that. If you're interested in finding a WordPress meetup somewhere around the world, we have a link for that too. You'll find that under announcements from us and producers. And for those who are interested, there are 5 WordCamps planned for August around the world right now. There's a WordCamp in Nairobi, Kenya. Community Summit 2023. I'm not sure where that is. Probably have to go and follow the link. WordCamp in US, Denmark, and Jinja
and Nairobi.
All right. So if you are interested in these WordCamps around the world, you can go and follow the link that is right here for you. And we have a few different ways you can reach us. We have the virtual and the brick and mortar way. You can find that also in our show notes. Today's plugins we covered were...
I covered up the redirection plugin by John Goodley. Redirection made easy. Keep track of your 404s and tidy up all the loose ends your site may have. And I gave it a 5 dragon rating.
I covered Hide WP Admin Notifications by Yoda of WP. I love that name. You can hide your dashboard notices, keep your dashboard clean and organized for you and your client, and you have the option to show your notices whenever you choose, whenever you want to, whenever you need to. I gave this a 5 dragon rating.
Excellent. And it's time.
It's question and answer time with John and Amber.
All right. So, as mentioned before, if anybody out there has any questions they'd like to have asked here on the show, you can send them in to me at amber@wppro.ca. So far, I haven't managed to stump my dad, but maybe with some producers' help, we'll be able to finally stump him. I'd love some help to do this. It's been a few years now. Still haven't managed. My first question is, PHP 8. Do you think this may be why there are so many WordPress themes with vulnerabilities popping up right now?
Well, I don't know if that's the reason why, so much as it's just, you got to remember the hacker race is an arms race, and they wrote the code the best they could at the time, and it was secure until the hackers found a way around it. And I was looking through the list of plugins today. It's like we're talking plugins that I know take their security seriously, such as the event calendar, Elementor plugin. There was several on there that they're common, ones that I actually use and I've been using for years. It's just that the hackers found a new vulnerability is all it is. And it's a constant race. The hackers are always looking for vulnerabilities. Code writers are looking for ways to plug the holes. So it's not so much PHP 8. It may have some impact on it because PHP 8 has dropped certain functionality, but that's I would consider that to be a minor issue in the long run, because a lot of these sites might not even be at PHP 8 yet. They might still be running on 7. So
I was thinking maybe the switch to PHP 8 may be the reason why there's so many vulnerabilities. I don't know.
No, I'm willing to bet these vulnerabilities they've always been there. It's kind of like, there's still 0-day vulnerabilities in things like Windows and other places. Even,
it's true.
The problem is those 0-day vulnerabilities just haven't been found yet. And depends on who finds it first, whether it be a white hat or a black hat that finds it. If it's a white hat, they get a bounty for finding it, disclosing it professionally, doing the back doors, and so the company gets a chance to close it before it's even announced. Or the black hats who go, woohoo, let's post this one up on the interwebs, up on the dark web, so I can make a shit ton of cash.
And for those listening who have no idea what 0-day means?
Oh, 0-day means the day they wrote that program. Day 1 of that program, that vulnerability has existed since day 1 of that program. That's what 0-day means. And there are still 0-day. It's like I haven't seen one in a couple of years, but it was 3 years ago. There was one in maybe it was a little longer, a couple 3 years ago. There was one in Linux, the Heartbeat.
It was about 2 years ago.
What's that? The Heartbeat?
That was about 2 years ago.
Oh, it was longer than 2 years. It's way longer.
Was it?
Yeah, it was way longer than 2 years for the Heartbeat. But it's like these vulnerabilities exist. The problem is nobody knows they exist until somebody figures out how to exploit them. And so they've been there since day one. But sometimes the 0-day vulnerabilities, they'll get discovered by one person and they'll sit there and exploit them to their heart's content and until somebody else discovers it.
Oh no, it was a couple years ago. There was a 0-day Microsoft that caused a lot of issues. That's what I was thinking about.
Microsoft had one a few years ago too. So they happen. They still occur. It's like the code writers write the code to the best of their ability at the time. And that code may work for years, and then all of a sudden it just up and fails, or all of a sudden a smarter person comes along and goes, what if I do? And sometimes it's not what if I do this. Sometimes it might be the cat walked across their keyboard and they saw something happen and went, what the hell just happened? Because seriously, I've had things happen to me where I randomly smacked the keyboard and something happens. Like, well, what'd I just do? Yeah. That was cool. And then I figure out what I just did and I recreate it. And so I've discovered, a new way of doing something or a new vulnerability. Because
I've never had a cat walking across a keyboard actually help me. Usually it just breaks things.
Yeah, I know. But that was a nice way of example because cats walk across just truly random keys.
Yeah, they really do. They never step on the same one twice.
No, they don't. I've had it happen to me. I almost chucked a cat across the room because of it, because I was in the middle of something and it messed everything up.
Oh. All right, so next question.
Mm-hmm.
If your WordPress theme has a vulnerability going on right now, what is the best course of action, do you think?
Well, contact a developer. Hopefully they've got a fix for it. If they don't have a fix for it, you can pray that your site is not targeted, or you can change your theme real quick. That's your only options. Those are your only options, is hope and pray that the developer fixes it real fast, change the theme, or pray that the bots don't find you until it's fixed.
Theory about the bots. It seems like they tend to go after the more well-traveled sites. So if your site is pretty not known, you might be safer.
Yeah, well, there is such thing as security through obscurity.
Yeah.
When you're obscure, you're a little more secure. The problem is the bots constantly wander the internet. In fact, they program bots to search for certain functions on websites. I see it in my logs all the time, a string of numbers being hit from multiple IP addresses, and it's them looking for security vulnerabilities. So they throw that out. And what happens once the bot discovers the vulnerability, the bot is programmed to exploit the vulnerability, and then as soon as it exploits the vulnerability, it sends an email back to the programmer who sent the bot. And because the programmer gets a large collection of these things, you go into the list at the bottom, and maybe he's got 100 of them to sort through still, so he might not get to you for a while.
And pray.
What's that? I didn't catch that. What was that?
I said, so hope and pray.
Yeah, it's basically hope and pray. Because, there's not much you can do except for yank the theme off. And yanking a theme off, well, as you know, is not an easy task.
Not something that is recommended if it can be avoided, no.
No, if you can avoid yanking a theme, don't do it. If you're going to yank a theme, be prepared for hours and hours and hours of work.
But you have to be careful not to beat yourself up over.
Yes, you don't beat yourself up over the fact that you did something one way and now you might have to do it slightly different, and maybe it's going to be slightly different, but hopefully so close it's hard to tell.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
I've got a couple more questions after the closing credits.
All right, we'll let our girl take us out of there. For those listening in the downloads and the podcast, don't forget, go visit the YouTube channel to hear the rest of the questions, and go check out the pre-stream. Sometimes it's entertaining like it was today. At the moment, we'll let our girl take us on out of here.
Reminders for the show. All show notes can be found at wppluginsa-z.com. And while you're there, subscribe to the newsletter for more useful information delivered directly to your inbox. WP Plugins A to Z is a show that offers honest and unbiased reviews of plugins created by developers because you support the show. Help keep the show honest and unbiased by going to wppluginsa-z.com/donate and set the donation level that fits your budget. Help us make the show better for you by subscribing and reviewing the show at Stitcher Radio, Google Play, and in the iTunes Store. You can also leave us a review on our Facebook page using wppluginsa-z.com/Facebook. You can also watch the show live on YouTube, check out the screencasts and training videos, and remember to subscribe and hit the bell to get notifications of all new videos. Follow the show on Twitter at WPPluginsA-Z. John can also be reached at his website, johnoverall.com, or email him directly, john@wppro.ca. Thanks for joining us and have a great day.
Thanks for listening to the show. This show is copyright by johnoverall.com. So until next time, have yourselves a good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you happen to be out there on the globe today.
Alrighty then.
All right, so my next question for you. What are your thoughts on having the look and feel of the WordPress dashboard changed up? And what kind of issues do you think this may cause for developers and general users alike?
I kind of like the idea. I mean, it is getting a little bit of a mess in there.
It kind of is.
So, but
I think it would have made more sense when there were less plugins.
yeah, well, the problem is I'm afraid they're gonna make this into a freaking
Yeah.
zoo, with lack of a better polite term. I just don't. I've lost all hope in the redevelopers in their ability to keep it logical. Because even if a bit of a mess it is right now, it's still logical.
Yes.
You know, the problem is, I guess, is that we don't have as many logical people doing this stuff. That's my assumption. Is because if you're not logical, you want things differently, which is why I have such a tough time with so much of this stuff nowadays.
It could also be that they have a lot more artsy-minded people, because I've noticed that a lot of the changes are more artsy oriented
I just
and
said that.
less like what?
I just said that. They're not logical.
Hey man, artists are logical.
No.
They're just
Oh, well,
unique logic.
Yeah, that's a very nice way of putting it. Yes. That's a very nice way of putting it. Very unique logic.
Yes. I'm an artist, so I should know.
Uh-huh. Yes, which, you know.
The biggest problem with having so many artists working together, though, is each artist has their own unique brand of logic. So when they're trying to merge all of these different brands of logic together, it creates a conglomeration of uniqueness.
Yes, that was the joy of the programmers, is they all seem to have the same brand of logic.
Uh-oh, did I lose you?
No, you still there?
Okay, there you are. Yeah, I'm still here.
That's the joy of programmers, is they all seem to have the same brand of logic.
Well, that's because they all think about the code.
Mhm.
And so everything is based in the code, whereas the artsy kind of people, they tend to think about the look and feel, and then they think about the code.
Yeah.
So it'd be
See,
great
that's
to
why-
have
that's-
more artists who are coders.
That's why it used to work very well back in the day, where the programmers brought together the functionality. It all worked well, and yeah, it was all boxy and stuff. And then they brought in an artist to make the boxes look pretty.
Yeah.
Okay, and that was their job. The artists were to make the boxes look pretty. Don't mess with the code, because the code actually works. Just make
Yeah.
it look pretty. Well, somewhere along the lines, they lost that knowledge where they weren't supposed to mess with the code. So now they get in and mess with the code, and they try to make the code look pretty. It don't work that way.
That is kind of the problem. I think that is the exact problem I think we finally hit the nail on the head there. The code is starting to look pretty, and that's not what's needed.
No, the code doesn't need to look pretty. The code needs to work. Nobody sees
Yeah.
the code. Nobody ever sees the code except the code writers. But the pretty boxes, I can understand. That was my problem. I can make things work, but I had troubles making them look pretty. It took me a while before I started making things look pretty. My brain didn't work that way. So yeah, it's just, I'm really hoping that they don't make a complete mess out of the administrative area, the admin area. I'm afraid they're going to. I mean, it's
To just looking at the various upgrades and updates that have happened over the last few years,
Yeah.
some of them were not helpful.
No, they weren't. They weren't overly helpful. They didn't add that much to the ecosystem. They just sort of complicated it up. It's kind of like the argument they had over the control panel. I still can't get that name in my head. You covered it in the news today?
Something palette, color
That's it.
palette, I think.
The control palette. That's it. The control palette. They sort of
No, I think they call it a color palette.
no, they couldn't.
I'm not sure.
They wanted to call it color palette. There,
Okay.
We'll go back to your news. We'll scroll right back up the page. This is something because
It's obviously not a good name because nobody can remember it unless they read it.
yes. Well, the people who created it can remember it just fine here.
Unless, of course, they carry on a sticky pad note.
Yeah. Well, there's that problem too. Let's see, which article was that? Starting blocks, discussions, mock-ups, line now. Where was that? And overall, discussion of initial mock-ups, experimental blocks, cover heart. No, that's the 900 plugins. Keep the lead old content. You just covered it. Why aren't I seeing it in the list?
All right, let me have a look. I figured you'd go find it, so I wasn't going to look, but...
Yeah, well...
Let's see.
It was like the second or third item we covered today.
Command palette.
Command palette. So they call it command
So
palette.
we were both wrong.
Yeah, see, they call it command palette, and it was the geek thinking ones wanted to call it control palette, but they wanted to call it something blocks or no, not palette, but colors, something you just had to name.
They wanted to call it the center console or command console.
Yeah.
Command center or center console. That's what they wanted to call it.
Well, command console made more sense.
Yeah.
Than what that's what the right brain people wanted to call it, but the left brain people wanted to call it something flowery like it ended up. So they settled in between the two.
Yeah.
So those are the problems we have with it. And that's unfortunately just the way it is right now. And for those of us that have been like this, well, we're getting close to retirement. And so I'll be out of this area before long.
Hope and pray. That's all we can do.
Yep, that's it.
All right, so my last question. Now, this question is to be answered as though you are speaking to someone greener than grass. How do you take a site and move it from a theme to a page builder? What does it take? What tends to break and why? And how do you overcome differences between the two?
All right. Well, if you're going to take a site from a theme to just a plain page builder and duplicate the theme, basically what's going to happen is all the layout you currently have is going to be gone. Now we can recreate all of that layout and look and feel of the site with the new page builder. It just takes time. And it won't be 100% perfect, but it'll be so close it shouldn't matter. Because we just have to figure out the page builder to match the theme's layout, because every theme has its own unique layouts. Now, what it takes time, is what it takes. It takes time to get it done, time to figure it out. Things that break, the only thing that breaks when you swap out themes, a page builder is actually just another theme. Just so you know, it's just, you still have to have a theme in there. It's just you're using the page builder to build the layout versus using the theme to build the layout. And what's going to break? The only thing that's going to break is the look and feel initially, until you readjust all the look and feel to match your font sizes, your font layouts, your image sizes, image layout, et cetera, et cetera. So in reality, nothing's seriously going to break. And the only thing to overcome it is time. It just takes time to do it. How fast can it be done? And that is the problem. So I don't know how to.
That was pretty comprehensive.
I don't know how to explain it any simpler than that.
Well, my hopes in asking you to explain that as though to someone who's greener than grass is that somebody who is green as grass, at least, will feel a bit more comfortable reaching out and asking questions. Because we're not going to be like a lot of those forums that you've probably come across at this point where people are just mean.
Oh, they're downright cruel. I hated them back when I had to look for answers.
Yeah.
And I wasn't green. It was like, dude, there's no need to be rude. It's a question.
Yeah.
You know?
So feel free to reach out with questions because there, at least here, there are no stupid questions. If you don't know that information and you're asking, you're not stupid for asking the question. You're actually pretty awesome for wanting that information.
Yeah.
So feel free to reach out. I'm hoping that some of our listeners do. I'm hoping that more people will feel a little more comfortable reaching out with questions that they might think will be dumb.
Yeah, well, that's what we want, and it makes it easier for people and get some the stuff they need. Give them the answers I know. I mean, I've got, it's 2023, so I guess I've got 25 years in this industry now.
Yep.
25 years.
Got a total of 3.
15 has been doing nothing but WordPress. So, and I've done all kinds of areas in this field. I've mainly focused on the server side of it all, but I've done everything else. I have just enough knowledge in some areas of it to be dangerous.
Yeah, that's always fun when you know just enough to be dangerous. I think I'm at the point where I'm starting to get away from the just enough knowledge to be dangerous.
Yeah.
Now I know how to also fix the dangerous things that I break.
Yeah, well, it's always fun to have just enough knowledge to be dangerous. It makes it challenging.
It does, and it makes it a lot of fun to break the sites you know you're allowed to break. Sandboxes are so much fun when you know just enough to break everything.
Yeah, well, that's what sandboxes are for.
Yep.
All sandboxes are for breaking everything. I used to use my sandboxes a lot. I'd have 2 or 3 sandboxes going. And my favorite thing was to take one sandbox and see how many plugins I could load up into it and have active and see if it still kept running.
I'm having a lot of fun with Ipsum Lorem right now.
Oh,
I've noticed that there's a lot of plugins that have come out where they're saying that they're going to fill out all the SEO information on all the different images. So I'm having so much fun trying out all these different Ipsum Lorems and just shoving random pictures in there to see if they'll actually do it.
Yeah, well, it's going to be interesting. You know, a lot of things are being automated, which is nice. Nice for someone like me who sometimes doesn't take the time to deal with some of that shit.
I think that is our show.
All right. Well, we'll call it a day. Thanks, everyone, for listening that came here to the YouTubers. A little bit of music to carry us on out of here.
These are the days of thunder. We're gonna make time stand still. A quarter after midnight, and I'm watching the wall. Sometimes I feel so uptight, I just can't sleep at all. Every day doing the same old thing, we're losing time. The weekend comes, we gotta have some fun and rewind. These are the days of thunder. We're gonna make time stand still. We gotta feel the hunger, hanging over the edge just to taste the thrill. I feel the rope tightening, choking off our air.
righty, folks. That's all we've got for you now. Take care. Bye-bye.
Take care.
Oh my god, that is amazing!